Are we ready?
Ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, go! Waiting for waveforms.
Excellent waveforms.
Soil degradation is one of the biggest risks facing us today.
This is about respecting our soil, understanding that our future depends on our soil.
This is our crucial resource. I mean, we can get everything else right, but if you get the soil wrong, we are kippered. The Earth Rover Program was inspired by a pub conversation. The subject of soil came up pretty quickly. It sort of occurred to both of us in this conversation that seismology could be extremely well adaptable to the soil problem.
You're going to go from this type of technology to a mobile phone?
Yes, a non-intrusive way of peering into soil so that we can gain an understanding within the environment that soils actually exist in.
For this to be solved, we need real-time data on the soil status because soil is actually the basis of everything.
So Target's come today with some new technology that they've been developing.
Currently, to understand soils, we normally have to take soil samples and analyse them in the lab.
So we had to start with reinventing seismology for the scale of the soil. So that is doing what we do at the scale of the planet, which is the core of the Earth, for example, mapping that down all the way to 10 centimeters.
This is kind of the next step, which is much more affordable.
To be able to provide a farmer with an instrumentation that could sit on a phone.
In this little box, these are the sensor boards that we designed in ERP.
And then that will talk to your phone?
Yes, that's the most exciting part.
Something that can be used regularly, takes all of that cost out and gives farmers a much more dynamic understanding of what's going on.
Oh yeah, actually it captures them.
It tries to image an unreachable subsurface and comes up with a way of sampling, essentially CAT scanning the soil.
So that's able to talk to a satellite from there?
Yes.
Having a way of measuring the space in soil and put that in the hand or the pocket of a farmer would be really empowering.
Moje, Billy, Tatu.
To compare like how compacted was the soil and how it is now, this for me will be the first one that I'm very curious.
Once the farmer understands what kind of soil they have, then they are able to know what interventions they'll do to improve the yield.
Uno. Vamos.
So it's not only usable for the small farmers, for instance, in Kenya or Colombia.
We have to make this a global project if it's going to be meaningful.
A better knowledge would enable a more specific management of the soil system.
What goes on in the soil is so much more complex than I was ever taught when I was at agricultural college.
For agriculture people, we want water content, like we want water management informations, that will be a big one.
Any affordable and accessible tech that helps farmers, big and small, to understand what's going on in their soil has just got to be a good thing.
If we don't do this now, in the next 10 years, we are lost in thousands of harvests.
Looking into the future, I see a great revolution of agriculture.
I think if we listen our farmers, I think this relation is already steps ahead, you know.
So if we can take the guesswork out of farming by using the ERP program, then it's be terrific.
Feels like something in a dark world that's looking forwards and looking to actually trying to solve a problem.
Well, thanks everyone for coming to join our inaugural webinar, which by pure coincidence comes on World Soil Day. I think this project is the most exciting, purposeful, affirming thing that I've ever been involved in. And it's very rapidly growing into what we hope will be a series of transformative technologies. Thank you for coming, but also thanks to our supporters, the Bezos Earth Fund, Founders Pledge, Hogan Lovells, UBS Optimus Foundation, and our partners, the Alliance of Biodiversity International and the International Centre for Tropical Agriculture, the Centre for Ecosystem Restoration in Kenya, Harper Adams University, and the University of Exeter. And without them, we couldn't do any of this. Today, we, as well as launching the website and this webinar, we've published a launch report, which is a summary of the Earth Rover Program's work and its findings so far. And we sent a link to that in the reminder email for this webinar, and we'll be putting it in the Zoom chat as well. But you can also find it on our Earth Rover Program website, which I think is earthroverprogram.org. Now, what we're going to do today, we're going to hear from some fantastic speakers across science, economics, technology, agriculture, about the importance of understanding our soils, the role that what we call soilsmology can play in making soil health visible, measurable, and actionable. We're going to kick off with a keynote by Dr. Kate Rayworth, whom all of you will know from her amazing book and action program, Doughnut Economics, which is now transforming countries and cities around the world. And what she brings is this amazing ability to contextualize our problems, contextualize the sort of things we need to do, which will give a sort of grounding in the kind of thing that we're trying to achieve with this program. And after that, we're going to hear from some of our scientists and technologists, and one or two who aren't involved directly with the Earth Program, about Earth Rover Program, about what we're doing. There should be time, hopefully, for a couple of audience questions at the end. So please do put your questions in the Q&A box where our moderators will be able to see them and share them with me. So over to you, Kate, to start us off.
Thanks, George. I am really, really delighted and honoured to be joining you here today. So that video, that wonderful video we just watched, started with farmers around the world tapping on a square inch of metal on the surface of the Earth. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to start by zooming us right out and asking, what is the purpose of the 21st century economy? What is the goal that we humans here on this incredible, delicately balanced living planet should be seeking to achieve together in the world? And I offer this. It looks like a donut. The goal here is to meet the needs of all people within the means of the living planet, pulling right out of all the complexities we face today, right? And the donut offers us this vision. So leave nobody in the hole in the middle of the donut, falling short on the essentials of life. These are inspired by the Sustainable Development Goals, which the world's governments have agreed every person in the world has a right to meet these needs. And you can see right in there food, as well as water, energy, health, all of these social essentials, which of course are profoundly interconnected in every person's life and community. So leave no one falling short on the essentials of life. But, and this is the very big 21st century but, we need to do that within the means of the living planet. We need to make sure that as we, humanity, collectively seek to meet all of these needs and our oh so many wants, we do not overshoot our pressure on the life-supporting systems of this incredible and unique living planet. We do not push ourselves so that we actually undermine the very systems that sustain us. So it's finding a balance. And to me, this is the essential, right? The shape of progress this century is not grow, grow, grow. It's find balance where we meet the needs of all within the needs of the planet. And how we find that balance is all to play for. And it's where we need so much ingenious thought of what can we do with the resources, the technologies, the information, the skills, the connections that we have. How can we find new ways to solve the problems we face? Food is so central to this. Right? It's one of the critical issues in the donut, and it's interconnected with all of those social issues. But it's really profoundly connected to every single one of these 9 planetary boundaries. When we try to grow food, first we convert land, we turn it into a field. So we're taking away whatever was there, we're revealing the soil. And there's a vulnerability in that. We're, of course, also removing the biodiversity that was there. There's a real risk that we not only remove ecosystems that were thriving there, that ultimately lead to the loss of species. So converting land and the risk of biodiversity breakdown, how we grow our food is really profoundly connected to this. We can disrupt the water when we start to draw water from lakes and rivers to irrigate, but also we can see from climate change there's a loss of soil moisture. So Water and food are, of course, profoundly interconnected. Many farmers apply phosphorus and nitrogen as fertilizer. Great if the plant takes it up. The trouble is most of it doesn't get taken up. It leaches out into lakes and rivers. It turns them green. It kills off aquatic life. So there's really serious nutrient pollution associated with agriculture, as well as chemical pollution, like the pesticide use, which we know can kill many, many pollinators, but also deeply, profoundly undermine our own health. The carbon dioxide that's released, whether it's fossil fuel intensive agriculture or indeed released from the soil through poor soil management, not only contributes to climate change, to global heating, but also ocean acidification. And when soil is exposed and in comes great winds, it turns into terrible dust, the loss of that topsoil and the pollution of the air. And ozone depletion because, well, that problem began with the use of CFCs in refrigeration, trying to keep food cool. Of course, we found new ways of coping with that, but the point is food is intimately connected to every one of these planetary boundaries. The way we've historically produced food has actually been contributing to pushing us over all of them. And here's the challenge within the heart of the food system. Can we find new forms of governance, of technology, of production that actually produce enough food for the world while bringing us back within these planetary boundaries? The starting point is pretty hard to look at, right? This is where we are in the world, and this was very recently published in the journal Nature. So we know that billions of people fall short on their essentials in life when it comes to food. 10% of the world population still don't have enough to eat every day, and 30% of people actually face food insecurity. But we can see also on the planetary boundaries, we are way over so many of them. So you wouldn't want to begin from here, but we begin from here. This is the situation we as a generation have inherited and helped to create. How do we turn this around? Now, I'm showing you a static image right now. Of course, what really matters is what direction we're going in. I'm sorry to say that the story doesn't get much better. I'm going to unroll this donut, right? It's round. Imagine if we slice it and unroll it. This is what we call the baguette. We love food metaphors. So this is the baguette, exactly the same information, but unrolled. So the planetary boundaries on the top and the social foundation on the bottom. We've used colors to show you what has happened over the last 20 years. So let's just bring our attention to the bottom. What you can see is that actually in a number of social areas, that pale pink shows you where we started in 2000 and now where we've come up to 2022. There have been improvements. There have been some. Not on food. It's the very first one on the left-hand side. Actually, food's barely changes. It's going in slightly different directions, which is shocking, right? We're failing to do the most fundamental thing in the world, which is ensure every person has enough to eat. So we're failing to make the progress that the Sustainable Development Goals promised that we would be making from 2015 to 2030. We're not moving anything like fast enough. There is some progress in some areas. You can see it on improvements in health, for example. There's big pink columns. That's the number of people who've been lifted out of health deprivation. But keep looking along there. And the other really big column that you see is internet access, right? The number of people who had no access to the internet has actually really reduced. We know that that technology has spread around the world, and it's really relevant today. That is one area where there has been progress. Many more people now have access to the internet through mobile phones than they did 20 years ago. How can that piece of progress actually, could it be a key? Could we use that opportunity to help unlock a lot of the other deprivation in the world? Now I'm going to invite you to look above the curve, and you'll see that those dark red areas, well, that's where things are getting worse. And so the ecological story, you can just read it very visually across the screen. We are still going further over planetary boundary. We haven't even begun to turn that story around. We're not coming back into those planetary boundaries yet. So there is massive work to be done. And we need to, we're not going to do it through last century's approaches. This is our own challenge. They didn't see this double whammy challenge, meet the needs of all people while coming back within planetary boundaries. This means we need to think about governance, inequality, and tackling inequality, but also technology in ways that other generations before us just didn't think. This is an incredible opportunity to do things differently. And I'm going to stop showing my screen here because I'm going to sit with this question about technology. Now, when people say, oh, you know, technology is going to solve it, I immediately get a little concerned for two reasons. One, because what we often see in the world, and I'm going to use this to symbolize technology, intellectual property, right? Technology, because it's so powerful and could be so lucrative, it so often ends up in the hands of the very few. and is used actually to just extract and extract and extract again from things that people desperately need. What we need are not technologies that are centralizing of that power and information, but actually are distributive by design, right? And that I see in this program, the opportunity exactly at the heart of how it's designed is the opportunity to distribute access to information, access to learning, and therefore empowerment of farmers, distributing it globally. So that is an incredible opportunity through this and through the technology of the internet-based connectivity of this program, through the very low cost of access at the point of each farmer, that is the ambition. And the other thing I'm going to say is, any technology, I never think it's inherently good or bad. It really depends on how it's deeply designed. And there are 5 deep design traits that I invite everybody to think of any technology through these 5 lenses, right? So you can first of all ask, take a technology. What is the purpose it's being put to? Like, what is it in service of in the world? And then everything else needs to be aligned with that. So the networks, who's involved, who's in relationship to this technology, who's been developing it, who are the users of it, who gets to feedback on it, what is that network, and is that network going to actually serve the purpose it's being put to in the world? How is it governed? Who has voice in how it's being designed and how decisions are taken? Whose voice is heard, who's in the room? Going deeper, how is it owned? Is it owned in a ways that ensures it really is going to serve its purpose? And at the bottom, the most profound, because it's often the one that's the tail that often wags the dog, how is it being financed? Is it being financed in a way that makes sure that its ownership and governance serve those networks of people that the purpose intends to support? So for me, these are questions at the heart of this program. And when I first learned about it, I had really excitement about that distributive nature of it, about the design and the clarity of the questions that are being asked. And I know it's still being designed, but the intention to make sure that it is indeed financed and owned and governed in ways that serve this purpose of providing enough food for all in ways that actually heal and restore the planet. So let me stop there with this big picture overview. I'm really thrilled to be bringing these ideas to this service in service of this purpose, because I believe it is indeed one of the ideas that can help us meet the needs of all people within the means of the living planet. Thanks, George.
That was absolutely stunning, Kate. Thank you so much. Wow, what an amazing educator and speaker you are. Thank you. Really great. So that really helps to put into context what we're trying to do here. And now to explain in more detail and to flesh out the science, technology, some more detail on the context, we're going to have a short panel discussion with 4 scientists. Professor Simon Jeffrey, who's one of the co-founders of our Earth Rover program and our soil science lead. Dr. Peter Masongo, who's a soil scientist at the Earth Rover Program's hub in Kenya. Professor Taye Nissenmeyer, who's another of our co-founders and our seismology lead for the Earth Rover Program. And Professor Francisca de Vries, who's Professor of Earth Surface Science at the University of Amsterdam. She's not part of the Earth Rover Program, which means, of course, that she's entirely objective. So, Taye, we heard in the video earlier that the Earth Rover Program originated from a conversation we had in which we realized that your specialism, seismology, could be applied to another field altogether, soil science. Can you tell us a bit more about that eureka moment and what convinced you that this approach could perhaps transform our understanding of soil?
Yes, thank you so much, George. This is such a pleasure to be here and talk to everyone here. So as a geophysicist, maybe not everyone knows here, I've been very used to gazing into the abyss. So basically asking the question, don't look up, just don't look up, but look down. So basically, we study the Earth's core, planetary interiors, a lot of fascinating questions that have inspired humankind forever. But seismology, which is the science of vibrations of the soil in solids mostly, is a lot more ubiquitous. So from a storm in a coffee cup to understanding animal vibrations, train traffic, calving glaciers, I've been always sort of trying to help expand our seismic horizons. Now, soil, of course, omnipresent, everyone knows about it, but how do we perceive it? So I think most people think of it as dirt, maybe a chemical black box, conveyor belt for food. Well, George comes around, raises a glass and says, no, it's a complex ecosystem. I was stunned. So eureka moment, I guess it's not really a lightning strike of genius. It's being the right people in the right place and time, obviously standing on the shoulders of giants and just connecting the right dots. Now, what are the dots here? I think for us, it was basically seismology applied to the living topsoil. soil and seismology has been studied beforehand by some amazing papers, but the living part of the topsoil, the really sort of decimeter scale of the subsurface, is new. But combining that with low-tech technology and sort of the revolution of technology inside mobile phones and AI is something that I've been also involved in. So that's side of the story that I've known. But then George comes around and says, here's a complex ecosystem thinking, and suddenly the soil surfaced. So I thought immediately that that's ought to work. And we scanned the literature, and then it's the rest is history.
Thank you, Taye. Now, Francesca, there's several alternatives to traditional monitoring methods already being used, including remote sensing, ground-penetrating radar. How do you see our soilsmology, as we call it, complementing those approaches?
Yeah, so that's right. There's several non-invasive technologies already. And so, for example, this remote sensing, for example, Copernicus, they provide soil moisture, surface soil moisture data, and soil water index maps based on satellites, also actually radio waves. So these give information on mostly the soil moisture in the topsoil layer. And that's obviously done on a very different scale. So that's really large scale, sort of ecosystem level information. And then this ground penetrating radar, actually, that also makes use of radar technology, radio waves. And this is also, a very useful non-invasive technology. But the thing is that that's really sensitive to moisture content, to water in the soil. And so it's useful for determining moisture content, but for determining other aspects, that makes it actually complicated. So it's being used, or people use it for assessing roots, for example, and this is also one of my interests. I would love to be able to determine root biomass non-invasively, but it only does the really coarse roots. So for me, it's not accurate enough. And so the nice thing about this soilsmology is that it's less or not affected by water content in the soil. And so it can be used a lot more reliably, I think, for determining soil bulk density. And soil bulk density is really important because it gives information on soil structure, and soil structure is extremely important for the functioning of soils. But also because when you want to know soil carbon and stocks in soil carbon, you need to know bulk density. And this is one of the measurements that's extremely labor intensive, especially when you want to know the bulk density of deeper soil layers. So these non-invasive technologies, they just will allow much higher resolution sampling.
Thank you very much, Francesca. Peter, you've worked closely with farmers in Kenya, and my experience there, people are generally far more aware of threats to the soil than we are in the UK. Could you describe some of the key pressures that farmers are facing and how our tools are being developed to address them?
Thank you, George, for that. The three main challenges facing Kenyan farmers are facing include declining soil fertility, increased cost of farm inputs, and unpredictable weather patterns. Most farms in Kenya rely on rain-fed agriculture, and therefore managing the soil moisture content is important to them. Again, the farmers cannot be able to do the soil health analysis because they are already financially pressed. So doing it's simply out of the question. It's a luxury they can't afford. Sometimes the laboratories are far away, and it means that by the time if they manage to do the soil health analysis, they get the results at the end of the season, which means that they cannot make decisions on time. Earth Rover Program has developed tools to address these challenges, where I see that farmers will be able to understand the soil health conditions and soil moisture content, and therefore make right decisions at the right time. It's an affordable technology, which means that even the poorest of the farmers are able to implement this. And I see if they implement this, then I see increased farm productivity, not only in Kenya or sub-Saharan Africa, but across the world.
Brilliant, thank you. Simon, we've heard about the implications of soilsmology for improving food production. What could the technology mean for farmers who are aiming to reduce their impact on the living world?
Yeah, thanks, George, and hello, everybody. So yeah, soil structure is a really key component of soil health, and all farmers want to have healthy soils because if your soils are healthy, they're generally more resilient. If you have bad weather, as we've had in the UK over the last year with extreme drought and very little rainfall, if you have good structured soils, they will hold on to any moisture that's there a lot better and make that available for plant roots. If soils are compacted, either due to too much trafficking, too much tillage, too much livestock, then that structure can degrade. And when that structure degrades, the pore space, the gaps between the soil, they become too small for plant roots to be able to penetrate, for water to be able to infiltrate into the soil, and for gases to be able to exchange between the atmosphere and the soil itself. Conversely, the other way, if soils degrade because they don't have enough organic matter in them, then the aggregates, the foundation of soil structure, can fall apart, and that leads to desertification processes. None of these things are any good for farmers. Currently in the UK, if there's issues around compaction, particularly subsoil compaction, it's very hard to find where that is and be entirely sure that it's in one place and not in another place. What some farmers will do is go out and dig a hole and try and have a look at the structure that way. But of course, by digging a hole in the soil, you're destroying the structure you're trying to look at. And what's more, most holes are not very big because it's tiring to dig them. And the area that you dig the hole in could be very different to an area that's just a metre or two away. So what many farmers will do if they suspect they've got subsoil compaction is to take a subsoiler out and take it across the entire field, possibly alleviating the issue where they have one, but also doing damage in other areas where there was no subsoil compaction. And our approach has the potential to really identify where subsoil compaction is, how deep it is, whether the soils are dry enough that running a subsoil through it is going to fix the problem or make it worse. And so by minimizing the amount of disturbance you need to give to the soil, by minimizing the amount of diesel you need to burn, dragging bits of metal through the soil, it has a strong potential to reduce the impacts associated with agriculture.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Simon. Francesca, earlier this year, the European Union introduced its first ever law on soil health monitoring, which is a very positive thing. But what impact do you think the policy will have, and how might the Earth Rover program help?
Yeah, so the soil health monitoring law essentially means that member states will have to set up monitoring programs to monitor the quality of their soils. And while a lot of the detail and the frameworks and how things will be measured still have to be developed, because these methods, ideally, they're the same across all the European member states, so everything is comparable. It's going to be very nice if there is a cheap, easy and non-invasive method for characterizing important soil properties, such as bulk density, because there are a couple of things that are explicitly mentioned in the soil health law that member states need to monitor. And so soil structure is a key soil parameter, and bulk density at depth also for measuring soil compaction, which is, well, it's also actually a big problem for farmers in the Netherlands, which is where I am, but also for quantifying soil carbon stocks. These are both explicitly mentioned in the soil descriptors that need to be measured. So, and for both, it's essential to have bulk density measures, which is just a real pain to measure, especially when you have to go deep down the soil profile, because you have to dig a pit in the field. You generally just dig one pit in a field, and it takes a whole day essentially. So if there would be a measure, like a method that would allow high resolution, quick and easy and cheap assessment of those parameters, that would be brilliant.
Fantastic. Peter, our partnership with the Centre for Ecosystem Restoration Kenya has been central to the Earth Rover program's progress. Could you share how this collaboration has informed our work and benefited the Centre for Ecosystem Restoration as well, or indeed other stakeholders in Kenya?
Thank you, George. At the Center for Ecosystem Restoration, we simply restore degraded ecosystems together with some of our partners, such as the Global Biodiversity Standards. Using our networks, we've been able to collect soil samples and do the seismic analysis across diverse ecosystems, which have greatly informed the machine learning models of the Earth Rover Program tools. Apart from that, the Center for Ecosystem Restoration has also been doing the restoration work. We restore degraded ecosystem, be it forest, be it eroded landscapes. And one of the parameters we assess is soil bulk density. Rarely we use that. We normally concentrate on the above ground simply because, as Professor Francesca has said, they are labor intensive, and we use other parameters. So with these tools being developed by Earth Rover Program, they are going to inform us so that we can tap into these unused indicators such as bulk density. And I guess this is going to help us do a lot more work and do it in a better way than before.
Thank you very much, Peter. Now, Taye, we've heard quite a lot about bulk density, but of course we're also going to be looking at, or already are, volume, connected porosity, texture, a whole load of really critical metrics which capture soil health and the direction that soil might be going into. And we hope by doing this to develop the world's first soil forecast or soilcast to capture the current state of our soils, anticipate their future health. Could you explain the implications of this new system for, say, farming practices and carbon monitoring?
So, yeah, I'm going to start with some analogies. So think of hungry humanity sitting on a boat trying to navigate some stormy waters, completely in the dark, not knowing what's below, what's above, what's ahead of you. Now, what I guess we want to try to do is switch on the lights and turn those into seismic rays. So essentially, once you have enough data, and this is all about the essence of decent forecasts, you can sort of produce weather-like forecasts. And this, of course, is something that's quite valuable for the soil. Why is that? Well, imagine being a farmer that has a soilcast app on their phone and getting a suggestion for, let's say, to irrigate a certain part of the plot in their land, or anticipate weather patterns for upcoming climate extremes, perhaps to anticipate how to change to a different crop rotation if you know that a really extreme El Nino is coming. So all of this can be evidence-based, and it has to be collaborative. So that's really at the heart of what we try to do, to include indigenous and local knowledge that's often generated by generations of knowledge of the local land. But with these modern AI techniques, we can ingest this sort of knowledge, join it with our data, with all sorts of other data, and then come up with these informative and causal frameworks that allow us to anticipate future predictions. Now, you mentioned carbon as well. Carbon stocks are a huge topic, of course, in many ways. There are carbon stocks in terms of sinks and sources. Both are equally important. Think of climate extremes affecting peatlands or tropics. So those have huge implications for the global carbon budget. Now, how is our technology potentially interesting? If we can quantify the soil volume and bulk density, which we've already shown, you can get much more precise estimates of these carbon stocks. Now, with that, and integrated with the holistic view on other parameters that we hope to image as well, we can then sort of bring that together as a kind of a forecast model for anticipating where certain stocks might be increasing or decreasing, and therefore sort of take action then upon these kinds of forecasts.
Thank you. And Simon, finally, for this soilcast to become a reality, we need our Soilsmology to be adopted at scale. What are the biggest barriers to this widespread adoption at the moment, and how is the Earth Rover Program addressing them?
Yeah, thanks, George. So I guess there are a number of barriers at the moment, some of which we're looking to overcome before others hopefully build up a bit of momentum. The first one's lack of awareness. Obviously, we're quite a new program. This is quite a new approach. We're trying to get the word out there through webinars like this, the report, through the article that you've released today. And we really want to stress that we're looking for collaboration. We're very much into a collaborative approach with scientists, with the whole range of stakeholders out there. Another barrier which we're addressing very readily is lack of technology. So when we first started with proof of concept, I first went to the field with Taye. We were using a laser vibrometer, which cost about £10,000, and you couldn't get it wet or muddy, which obviously isn't ideal for field work. You're going to be hearing from Jael later, our sensor engineer, who's been doing great work in reducing the costs and opening up accessibility of the technology, which ultimately we hope will end up with people using the accelerometers in their mobile phones. And then the final thing is interpretation. We really need to make sure the results that we get are easy to interpret by anyone that's using it. And we're fortunate, again, that in the program we have excellent seismologists, geophysical modelers, and software developers. And they're all working together to put together kind of a backend that sits behind the technology, which can ingest all of the data and then put out an output in a readily digestible format so that anyone that uses the technology can really kind of maximize the benefits of it.
Thanks very much, Simon. So we've heard from our sort of panel on the top level issues, but of course, there are people who've been out there getting wet and muddy. Not that the panelists haven't been; they've been plenty wet and plenty muddy over the last couple of years. But developing some of these technologies and scientific approaches that we've been hearing about. So I'm going to start by coming for this more sort of specific views. I'll start by coming to Dr. Maria Czechmistrenko, who's one of the seismologists working with the Earth Rover program. And Maria, could you explain why ultra-high frequency waves are especially well suited for monitoring soil health and what they let us see that other methods don't?
Well, thanks, George. If you're a seismologist or a musician or even a doctor, you're used to thinking in terms of waves and frequencies. That's because basically the frequency decides how much you can see, and whether it's with your ears, your eyes, or your instruments or your imaging tools, whatever. And a seismologist, for instance, who studies the deep structures of the Earth, uses very long, low frequency waves. So these waves can travel very far and they can see very large features inside the Earth, thousands of kilometers. A doctor, on the other hand, uses very high frequency ultrasounds to look at tiny structures inside your body. And when you have higher frequencies, that means high resolution, that means finer details you can detect. So now the Earth Rover program sits somewhere in between those two worlds. We want to understand what's happening inside the soil, roots, pores, compaction, moisture changes, all that. And the features are often that small that they're on the scale of centimeters. And traditional seismic methods that use like these lower frequencies simply can't see those features that are this small. So that's where these ultra high frequency seismic waves come in. And we're starting at a few hundred hertz and going upwards. And these waves are then short enough for us to interact with like the fine scale structures inside the soil. And they let us detect subtle changes in the soil that would be otherwise invisible to us. So like I said before, like how packed is the soil, how much water we have inside, what are the roots and stones and whatever. So in other words, higher frequency means higher resolution. Higher resolution means we can see the health of the soil in a way that was not possible before. And so these ultra high frequency waves give us a detailed image of the soil, which is almost like an ultrasound for the ground.
Brilliant. That's a great explanation. Thanks so much, Maria. I'm going to turn to Andres Vélez Gruezo, who's an agronomic engineer working with the Earth Rover program in Colombia. And Andres, you've been sampling soils on both coffee plantations and banana plantations. Can you tell us more about why healthy soils are so crucial to growers in the region?
Okay, thank you, George. Basically, soil health is really important because when we talk about healthy soil, we're talking about a soil where the plants use to grow. Basically, a healthy soil supplies water and nutrients and gives physical support to the plant. That means that the soil will act as a living system where all different of chemical, physical, and biological process will happen. When we are talking about healthy soils, or the soil is healthy, we are talking about a soil that will help the plants to grow better, and the plants will make a better use of the nutrients and they can handle the stress more easily, and the plants that we're growing that soils will keep producing well over the time. In basically speaking, healthy soils affect how well the soil store waters, how easily the roots can spread through the soils, and how effective the nutrients are available for the plants. Is we have a soil poorly structured, we are not going to see too much biological activity. It will be the soil too compacted, and also the roots will not have a good development. And this will affect the production, and this will influence also the cost of production of the farms.
Thanks very much, Andres. That's brilliant. So our wonderful sensor engineer at the Earth Rover Program is Dr. Jiao Meng. Jiao, you've been developing sensor kits which will greatly reduce the cost of soil health monitoring. Could you tell us a bit more about what possibilities you might be able to unlock with your next generation MEMS accelerometer?
Thank you, George. Exactly. MEMS accelerometers are a real game changer for the cost. They have been used for decades to monitor low frequency vibrations on buildings and bridges, but now advances in semiconductor technology have finally given us affordable MEMS sensors that can capture accurately high frequency vibrations. As Maria mentioned earlier, these high frequency ones are crucial for understanding soil health in those top layers. What I'm having in my hands here are some of the sensors we've designed specifically for this purpose. And right now we're calibrating these in the lab, and we're really to understand and optimize the high frequency performance. In parallel to the lab calibration, we're working to build a wireless sensing network. So this network allows multiple MEMS sensors to receive commands, record vibrations, and then send data directly to the cloud-based hub. I'm sure our teams in Kenya and Colombia will be very happy to say goodbye to those long tangled cables in the very near future. And of course, we are collaborating with researchers at the University of Exeter to work on some key technical challenges. For example, precise time synchronization across all sensors and a very smart power management module, so the system can be left in the field for months, completely hands-off. What really excites me is the scalability this unlocks. Traditional geophone sensor arrays, they are expensive, bulky, very difficult to deploy at large scale. But with this MEMS sensor-based wireless sensing network, we're talking about deploying dozens and even hundreds of sensors across vast agricultural areas. That gives our farmers and the researchers the level of spatial resolution we've simply never had before. And there is another possibility, which is equally exciting, is on-site intelligence. So instead of just sending raw data to the cloud, the system will analyze it immediately and provides some instant feedback on the soil health. This means our farmers can make decisions in the field in almost real time without waiting for long-term kind of lab results. I hope you are as excited as we are about all these possibilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jiao. That was a really clear, excellent explanation. And allied to your work, we have some really interesting AI and machine learning work, which is essential for when you've got data on this sort of scale being produced. And Dr. Kung-Dai Leng, who's working as an AI scientist with the Earth Rover Program, it's going to explain how he's spearheaded our use of machine learning and the development of our new AI program, ERP-GPT. Kung-Dai, could you tell us more about how the program plans to use AI and the type of information it's going to provide to farmers and other users?
Thank you, George. Sure. So for us in the Earth Rover program, AI, I would say, really plays two roles, almost like two bridges. So first, soil is a very complex system. So in soil science, the quantitative links between core soil properties and field observations are still not fully understood, such as bulk density and soil organic carbon. especially associated with our large local scale high frequency seismic observations. So at ERP, we are applying the state-of-the-art AI for science methods, such as physics-informed modeling and attention-based causal inference, like Tarja mentioned, to learn from all available data, including the waveforms we collect. So the aim is to build these missing quantitative connections in a way that honors both our data and the physical principles of the soil systems. And second, AI serves as a bridge between our knowledge base and users from the field. So for example, as you mentioned, our ERP GPT family, a series of large language models, is designed as a very practical AGI layer augmented by our soil science and large-scale ERP soil datasets. So it's just not just a few prompt tricks, and this finally allows complex science and extensive data and expertise to be delivered to farmers through simple and intuitive conversations. So in summary, AI for ERP is doing science on one hand and facilitating communication on the other hand. Thank you.
That's brilliant, Kumdai. Thank you so much for that. And you've all been so concise that we've got time for a few audience questions. And the first one we've chosen is from Peter Garbett. Thank you very much, Peter. And thanks to everyone who's sent in questions, who says, I'm very impressed with the program, but how does it overcome, first of all, the political inertia and pushback from the big agro companies? And secondly, the traditional nature of some aspects of farming and farmers. So I might hand that to you, Francesca, if you don't mind, because I know you've got the wide view on these issues.
Well, what I think is great about this program is that it's really, sort of building this program from the ground up. So it's including partners and collaborators from all over the world, and therefore it makes sure that the technology is sort of community owned. And I think this is really what we need. So we need innovation, but we need the innovation to actually be owned by the people who will be using it and give them agency and ownership over how they manage their soils. And I think this is really great initiative to start to accomplish that.
Thank you. We've got a question from Warwick Mackey, who asks, what scale has the technology been tested on so far? And I would add to that, what scale are we intending to test it on? Could I pass that one to Tarja to kick us off on that?
Yes, sure. I mean, I think as it's hopefully clear, it's pretty early days still. So most of these fundamental tests that we've employed were on very small areas, basically just to see how these wave fields look like, whether we can adapt them to literally 10 centimeter scales. So that all looks really well. And we've just very happily concluded a full 1 hectare sampling 2 days ago at the scale of 20 centimeters. So a hectare is 100 by 100 meters. And we've done 720,000 waveforms that will be mapped to 30 million grid points over that 1 hectare. So that's something that if you were to do that with traditional sampling, you would destroy the whole hectare because you have to dig up everything. If you were to do it with other methods, there are some good methods like GPR, for example, but at the scale of 20 centimeter resolution in 3 dimensions, that's an unprecedented type of sampling. So we've done that with a few weeks. We always tweak our deployments. They become better every time we do them, and we get faster and faster. And this is still with the older sensors, so we haven't employed these MEM sensors that JR was talking about. So basically, every time we go out into the field, things speed up and we can apply them to larger scales. But I think what I want to get at mostly is that we are really keen to scale this from the ground up, basically with smallholder farmers around the world in very, very different types of ecosystems, and hand in hand sort of build that database from this very complex sort of setting. So I think what's more important for us is to sample the diversity and the complexity of the soil rather than going in one field and then scanning that whole field. We've shown that we can do that, but I think the more important thing is to really scale that up with collaborations across the world.
Great. Thanks very much, Tarja. Peter Barker asks if we have any ballpark estimate about when a commercially available Soilsmology tool could become available. Simon, could you answer that one for us?
So yes, certainly I can try. It's very difficult. I mean, the first thing to state is we are a not-for-profit, so we're not looking to commercialize this. We are looking to make the technology open and accessible. In terms of when it's going to be in the hands of a smallholder farmer in the global south, for example, or farmers across the UK, very hard to predict, but hopefully within the next year or two.
Thank you. I've got a question here for Jiao from Gerrit Nielsen. Will the MEMS accelerometer hardware be open sourced?
Yes, of course, it will be open, and this is actually what we are looking to achieve, to make all the technology open, of course, and some lessons to protect the intelligence.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And Tess Reed asks, do we think this program could help with improving water quality by reducing fertilizer runoff? And so I might give that one to Simon, if that's all right.
Yeah, certainly. Coming back to the issue around soil structure, if we can understand where issues around soil structure lie, such that we know where we might need to do a bit of remedial tillage, or where structure is good enough that we should avoid doing tillage completely. If soils are well structured, then they manage water much, much better. Just to use an example of another experiment we have here at Harper, the difference between a well-structured soil versus not, when we have a 1 in 10 year rainfall event, so very, very heavy rainfall event, the well-structured soil can infiltrate all of that without any ponding. The poorly structured soil has water forming on the surface very readily. If you have a little bit of a slope, that pond wouldn't just sit there, it would run off, and obviously water runs downhill and eventually ends up in rivers. So yeah, by improving the structure of our soils, we can massively reduce the potential for fertilizers to run off into our watercourses.
Thank you. Veronica Greenison asks that ecosystems aren't homogeneously spatially distributed, and they're rather patchy. Soil, we all know, varies a great deal locally. She's wondering if our approach if that's a problem for our approach, because we might be considering the measurements at one point as representing the whole field. How do we approach this issue with your technology? Maria, would you like to take that one on?
Yes, well, that's actually a very good question, because this is what happens when you do, for instance, soil measurements. You take in 1 hectare, you take one soil measurements and then extrapolate on the whole field if you don't have time and don't want to destroy the whole field. Our goal is basically to use the method automatically with JI's amazing tools, like over the whole field. So then we can image actually the whole field and we don't extrapolate. So we don't just sample one corner, but sample the whole thing and then make an image out of it.
Thank you so much, Maria. Very well expressed. And I think we'll finish with this one by the wonderful Richard Benwell. Thank you, Richard. What can people who aren't involved in the Earth Rover program do to help? Peter, would you like to take that one?
There is a lot that the people can do. First is maybe get the word out there of the work that we do. And again, we're coming up with, on the next phase, we're planning to do where we have citizen science. And we will make that information available on how and when to help us. And they can simply get in touch with us, and there are numerous areas where they can assist.
Thank you very much. Well, we're almost at the end now, but I just want to ask one or two of our panelists. I think, the big question, which I expect will be in a lot of people's minds, by 2030, how do you think our relationship with soil will have changed? And Kung Dai, I wonder if you could start us off on that one.
I think we definitely will have a much better understanding of soil properties and in a way, like how these soil properties interact, like their causal relations. And I think this is the one of our at least for AI person, that's where we're going to, like, say, what is clay content affect soil carbon along with other, and second, this will give much better support on decision making, what's the measurement to take, because Soilcast can tell you if you change this parameter, which direction the whole soil system is evolving to.
Thank you. And Andres, that could have direct practical implications for farmers like the ones that you're working with, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Andres, and that should have direct practical implications for the work of the farmers that you're working with.
Yeah, of course, we'll have like a direct implication because this will allow them, as Peter and most of my partners has mentioned, that we'll avoid to make too much damage in the soil, and we'll have like a fast results about the physical structure of the soil, and also parameters like build density, and also like soil organic carbon in the soil. And this will give like a quick view on how are their fields and how they will have to start to manage, or they have to make any correction to their manage or improve, or they can continue doing it as they were as well as they have done.
Thank you. Kate, can I come to you last? We came to you first with a brilliant presentation. From what you've heard today, do you think that this fits into your Doughnut model and takes us in the kind of direction that you would like to see us go?
What I think is so important about it is that it's really clearly a technology-focused intervention, which is exactly the kind of thing that can go in such different directions. And what the design of this is showing, who came up with it, why you came up with it. Like, you came up with a conviction to do something for the living world, right? That was the purpose. The team you brought together that we're hearing from people here, and I know there's many, many more people involved. This is exactly the kind of design, right? And I'm going to go back here, right? The way, oh, you can't see it, the way, it all disappears. The way you're designing it, there we are. The way you're designing this is everything. So the technology is beautiful, but it's how you put it into practice. And I think beyond the incredible impact that this has the potential to have of actually producing more food in richer soil for more people in a more distributed way, it also has the potential to demonstrate to other ways technology that is currently running away and actually really dangerously disrupting so much of the world. Technology can be repurposed to actually help meet these goals rather than keep driving us away from it. So I think there's even a wider demonstration effect that you're having far, far beyond the food system.
Thank you, Kate. What a lovely way to finish. Well, look, thanks everyone for attending. I'm really grateful that so many people have turned up to this. I hope you're as excited as we are. We'll be following this up with an email next week, which will give you a link to the recording of the webinar and a link to our report in case you haven't read it already. You can follow further updates on the Earth Rover Program website and LinkedIn, as well as through our mailing list. If you're a journalist who's been attending, you've got any follow-up questions, please send an email to media@earthroverprogram.org. If you're a scientist, farmer, policymaker, funder attending and want to find ways to collaborate, especially if you're a funder, hello, please reach out to research@earthroverprogram.org. And look, we want to hear from anyone who wants to be involved in any way. So there's also an info@earthroverprogram.org, a general email. Thanks, everyone. It's been a really great session. I'm super chuffed and excited about this whole launch. I just feel something positive at last. Really, really positive. So happy World Soil Day to everyone. Thanks very much to all our partners. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks for all the attendees. And happy days to all of you for Christmas and beyond. Bye-bye.